Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Ashley, and in today's video, as I'm sure you can tell, I just wanted to share my reading wrap up from the months of January and February 2026. Now, this is my first video of 2026, and I do have a few things I want to start off by saying first. Just a little bit of background information for those of you who may be interested, and if you're not interested, I will leave the timestamp to where you can go and watch the start of the video. Now, this feels important for me because I want to just be completely transparent and honest on my channel moving forward in 2026. So, just opening up a little bit about my personal life. I have been working full time as a dental assistant for the last 15 years, which blows my mind. I graduated dental assisting in 2011. After that, my career quickly became the focus of my life, and all my creative hobbies kind of went out the window. I actually started this channel in 2011, might have even been 2010 while I was still in school for dental assisting, and I continued with it for a few years, but then it quickly became something that got put on the back burner. I feel like over the past few years, I have reached a point of burnout in my career, and I've questioned what I'm gonna do about that. Now that I'm a little bit older, I feel like I'm much more self-aware than I've ever been. I'm learning how to balance being highly sensitive, highly introverted, and working in a really busy office environment, especially working with the public in a dental office. I'm somebody who, if I'm not very careful with my own energy, I will become burnt out very quickly. So, a big part of my journey has been, like I said, learning how to balance that, learning how to calm my nervous system, and just going back to like core hobbies, creative interests. On top of feeling burnt out, I also feel like I had to grow up really fast, and I've made it my mission to heal my inner child by reverting back to hobbies that brought me joy as a kid, just the simple things. Reading fiction has been one of those things that I've gotten back into over the past 5 years, especially. As a kid, I loved reading. I even wrote a short story for a contest in elementary school and was invited to a young authors conference. But when I got to high school, and after that is when I really stopped picking up fiction books. I got back into reading again in like my mid 20s, but it was like a heavy focus on personal development. And that also became pretty toxic over time. So, getting back into fiction has been so healing for me. And moving forward in 2026, I really want my channel to focus heavily on like book related content, reading wrap ups, maybe some reading vlogs if I can figure that out. But also, I want to incorporate more lifestyle based content centering around being somebody who's highly sensitive and highly introverted working in a busy 9 to 5. Now, with all of that background information out of the way, I want to say reading fiction has quickly become one of my most favorite ways to recharge, which is super important for me. And yeah, let's just get right into the video and see what books I read so far this year. So in the month of January, I read a total of 8 books. I read 7 fiction books and 1 nonfiction book that I did decide to include in this. Of the 7 fiction books that I read, I had 1 sci-fi, 3 fantasy romance, and 3 contemporary romance. I will say I mostly read romance and fantasy romance. Just saying. That's my favorite. That's my bread and butter. The first book that I read in the month of January was A Love Letter to Whiskey by Candy Steiner. This book I heard so many people rave about, and I had really high expectations for this just based on the reviews that I'd seen of it. I didn't really know exactly what the story was about, but people said friends to lovers, second chance romance. This is a standalone as well, which is kind of nice. But they also described it as like extremely toxic, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth chance. And I had this idea of what the story was going to be in my head, but I went into it blindly and it was nothing like I was expecting it to be. So that kind of threw me off a little bit, and maybe that's my own fault. Also, the main characters did feel a little juvenile to me, and they maybe are compared to myself. They're definitely much younger than I am. I don't know. I was expecting a little bit more. I don't know how to explain that. Although it wasn't what I was expecting, I still really enjoyed the story, and I would absolutely recommend this to somebody, especially if you're someone who likes, imperfect characters, second chance romance. You don't mind a little toxicity thrown in here and there. Overall, I had a good time with this book. It was just my hopes were like up here, and I was like, wait a minute. not what I was expecting. The next book that I read in the month of January was The Empress by Kristen Cass. I have to be honest, when I first bought this book, I was definitely drawn to it because of the cover and the red sprayed edges. Like, I just love the way this book looks. It's also tarot card related. I am very much into tarot. I love that. There's a couple tarot readers that I love watching on YouTube. Yeah, I saw this talked about literally one time last year, but when I saw it in store, I was like, I can't pass you up. This is book one in an interconnected standalone series called the Towerfall series. It is a fantasy romance. I think on Goodreads it was described as a spellbinding and spicy light romantasy filled with tarot, adventure, and a hero who is broody, sexy, and just the right amount of trouble. It's not so much like fantasy. I feel like it's kind of giving almost rom-com vibes as well, with like obviously that like fantasy romance spin on it. Our FMC, Hannah, she's a 23-year-old girl in corporate Chicago. She's got this big presentation coming up for work, and she goes into a tarot shop looking for advice. The tarot reading goes wrong. The reader is like, you need to leave my shop now, immediately throws her out, and she finds her tarot card in the snow. So when she picks up this tarot card, she ends up falling into this realm essentially within the tarot card called Towerfall. She meets the MMC Kane, and the story just kind of unfolds from there. It follows her journey and adventure in this realm, trying to again locate her tarot card so that she can go back home to her job in Chicago. This was like not life changing by any means, but it was a fun time. This is like a good little palate cleanser if you're looking for something like fun, lighthearted, spicy, and it's just like a good form of escapism. Just needing to shut your brain off and go to a different world where things are not what they are here. Nothing life changing, no crazy like world building or anything, but a fun little time, especially if you like tarot. I just like that little sprinkle of like something else in there that you don't see very often. The third book I read in the month of January was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. Now, if you are on the internet, if you are in the bookish space at all, I know you already know what this series is. You've probably already read it as well. This specifically is book number 5 in the ACOTAR series, or A Court of Thorns and Roses. I have to admit, I was severely underwhelmed by A Court of Thorns and Roses when I first read it. That being said, each book does get a little bit better. It took me a while between A Court of Wings and Ruin, which I finished last summer, and this because I wanted to read A Court of Frost and Starlight in the winter. And I did. I read that back in December. Super cute little novella with all the same characters. And yeah, book number 5. This was definitely my favorite of the series so far. I get it. Nesta girlies, I'm with you. I loved this one. And of course, like everybody else, I can't wait for the next book to come out. If you're new to fantasy romance, I would definitely recommend picking up the series or the first book. And just know that if you're kind of underwhelmed, like I was, it gets better. Next up, we have another Kindle read. The fourth book that I read in the month of January was May Luna by Kelly McNeil. This is another book. I had never heard of it, and then I saw a few people post about it last year, and I was super intrigued. Everybody that I saw post about this book seemed to love it. This is another Kindle read for me. I forget if I mentioned that already or not. It was on Kindle Unlimited at the time that I read it. I'm not sure about right now. This was a 90s rock star romance, which is my favorite microtrope ever. Like one of them for sure. I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s. Full transparency here, I was born in 1989. I will be 37 years old this year, which again, doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it, but it is what it is. And I'm just so nostalgic for that time period. I loved music growing up. My parents were always listening to music. I love 90s alternative rock, like has a special place in my heart for sure. So reading a story about a 90s English alternative rock band, or like the main character is the lead singer of said band, it'll get me every time. I'm also a hopeless romantic. So put those two things together, I'm going to eat it up every single time. Again, I went into this blind, and I think I highly recommend doing that. It's so good. This was a book where I immediately finished it and was like, yep, 5 stars, which is not super common for me. I honestly have a hard time giving a book a star rating sometimes, most times. Like you'll notice I didn't really say it for the other books that I read because I don't know. I don't know I don't know what my problem is there. But when I finished this, I was like, nope, this like one of my favorite books ever. I love My Luna, and I highly recommend reading that, especially if you're like me and you love a 90s rock star romance. Moving on to the fifth book that I read in the month of January. This was the book club pick for the book club I am a part of. I follow along with Madison Kate's book club on Patreon. The pick for January was The Second Death of Locke by V.L. Bovalino, I believe. Again, another Kindle read. I don't think this one's on Kindle Unlimited. I feel like I had to buy this one, but I'll double check and I will put it on the screen. This book, again, I saw so many people raving about this book, and sometimes that does me a disservice because my expectations are set way too high. This was another fantasy romance. This is an interconnected standalone series as well, with The Second Death of Locke being the first book. I think I have notes on my phone. I didn't really write a whole lot down about this. I remember it was okay, but oh, right. Initially I was getting weird vibes from the two main characters because she came off, our FMC came off extremely obsessed with the MMC, and I was just kind of whoa. It felt a little bit icky to me, but then as the story goes on, they kind of describe the relationship between a mage, and I think he's a knight, or maybe a mage in a well. I don't know. This was one where I had a hard time staying focused until I got to the 60% mark. From there, I remember thinking okay, stuff's starting to happen and I'm kind of hooked now. I want to keep going to the end of the story. I have to admit, this is one of the books that I really don't remember much about what happened, if I'm being honest. It doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. It was good. Okay, next up. This was another favorite of the month. I don't know if I could pick a favorite, to be honest. It would be between this one and My Luna, I would say. But I read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is so good. I immersive read this with the audiobook. Highly, highly, highly recommend the audiobook. It's so good. And I really can't wait for the movie to come out in March. I actually convinced my boyfriend to read this book as well, and he really enjoyed it. So this is a book that I think anybody could read and enjoy. This is my first sci-fi ever. And this had me questioning, am I a sci-fi girl? Do I want to read more sci-fi? I don't know, but I really enjoyed this. If you have other recommendations similar to this that are sci-fi or, something similar, let me know because this was so good. It basically follows the story of a lone astronaut. He's the sole survivor on a last chance mission. And if he fails this mission, humanity and Earth itself will perish. Highly recommend Project Hail Mary. And like I mentioned, it is a book to screen adaptation coming out in March, starring Ryan Gosling. So we will be watching that when that comes out in March, for sure. All right, and the seventh book that I read in the month of January was also another book to screen adaptation I was preparing for, and that is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I have not watched the movie yet. It is on Netflix now, and I need to do that ASAP. This was classic Emily Henry. I love her books. The only one I haven't read now, I think, is Book Lovers, and that will be happening this year. But yeah, People We Meet on Vacation follows Poppy and Alex. They meet in college, they become best friends, and after college, she goes to New York. He stays in their hometown, but every summer they go on a vacation together. Until they don't, because they stop talking to each other for 2 years. So the story kind of leads up to that, and we find out what happens. And just like I said, classic Emily Henry. If you've read her books, you're probably going to love this one. And again, another book to film adaptation that I cannot wait to watch the movie. Perfect little rom-com situation. I will always read an Emily Henry book. Actually, I just realized I have not read A Great Big Beautiful Life either. So Book Lovers and A Great Big Beautiful Life are still on the backlist, but have officially read this one and really, really, really liked it. Now, the nonfiction book that I read in the month of January was actually an audiobook. Pulling it up here. Don't remember exactly what it was called. The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown. It was really good. Let me go to the title details. Like I said, I listened to this on Audible. In the description here, it says, Brené writes, "This book is an invitation to join a wholehearted revolution, a small, quiet, grassroots movement that starts with each of us saying, 'My story matters because I matter.' Revolution might sound a little dramatic, but in this world, choosing authenticity and worthiness is an absolute act of resistance." So super good, just for kind of accepting imperfections and embracing authenticity. I need all the help I can get in that department. And this is probably something that I will re-listen to again because I just find information like this really helpful. And repetition is just like the key to retaining this information and kind of accepting it and putting it forward as your truth as well. Let me know if you're interested in knowing like what my nonfiction reads are each month. I think it's kind of interesting, but let me know if you do. Now, for the month of February, today is currently February 27th, tomorrow being the last day. I am currently in the middle of two books. I'm hoping to finish at least one of them, hopefully two, but we'll see. We'll have to see. The first book, though, actually, before I even get to that, I so far have read four books in the month of February, all fiction. Two of them are fantasy romance. I read one rom com and one contemporary romance. The first book I read in February was Lady of Darkness by Melissa K. Rourke. This is book 1 in 5 in the Lady of Darkness series, and this is all a part of Melissa K. Rourke's Chaos Verse. I started the Legacy series last year, which is a second series of hers, and I read Reign of Shadows and Endings. I wasn't crazy about it, to be completely honest. The female main character, Tessa, drove me a little bit crazy. I'm sorry, but she did. I didn't continue. Then I discovered that it's recommended to read the Lady of Darkness series first, which I wasn't aware of at the time, I don't think. And I was just craving a fantasy romance when I got to the end of January. For some reason, Lady of Darkness was just calling my name, so I decided to download it on my Kindle. This series is available on Kindle Unlimited right now. It's a new adult dark fantasy romance. The story follows Scarlet. Her and her two sisters are trained assassins in the mortal lands in this realm, and they're kind of like the most feared in their kingdom. And children start disappearing from the Black Syndicate, which is kind of like their home base. And Scarlet obviously becomes concerned and she wants to get to the bottom of it and figure out who is behind it. And through doing that, she goes on this journey. She ends up discovering all kinds of secrets. And from there, I think it just really starts to lay the groundwork of the Chaos Verse. And I see why it's kind of important to read this story or this series first. I flew through Lady of Darkness. I loved this book. It was like really fast paced. It kept me really interested the entire time. Another book I went into blindly, but I don't regret that decision at all. And when I finished Lady of Darkness, I immediately downloaded Lady of Shadows by Melissa K. Rourke, which is book number 2 in the Lady of Darkness series and also the second book that I read in the month of February. So I still really enjoyed Lady of Shadows, but it did feel a little more slow to me, a little bit repetitive. There wasn't a whole lot happening in the first 60% of the book, maybe even more than that. But as I got towards the end of book 2, it had me hooked again. And I was really interested in what was happening and what was going to happen at the end of the book. I don't want to say too much about it because it is the second book in a series. But just know that when I finished Lady of Shadows, I told myself, I have one more book that I need to finish before I go into Lady of Ashes. And that didn't last long. I pretty much also immediately downloaded Lady of Ashes, which is book number 3, and I started that. So I am currently 14% into Lady of Ashes. I'm really loving where the story is at this point. I'm wondering if this is going to be my favorite of the series so far. I'm definitely liking it more than book 2, but I'll have to keep you posted on my final thoughts. I'm also currently in the middle of reading Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. This is a Hoops novel, which is book 1 in another interconnected standalone series. This is contemporary romance, but this book is devastating at times. It's beautiful at times. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to read, so definitely check your trigger warnings. Kennedy Ryan she writes with an emotional punch. Just the way that she uses her words. I love the way that she writes. But this book has been heavy at times. I'm currently on I don't even know what chapter I'm on. Page 337, chapter 42. So I'm almost done. I think I have about 100 pages left of this book. So my goal is to finish this before tomorrow, which I think is pretty realistic. And I have a feeling this is probably going to be up there with one of my favorite contemporary romance books. Although it is a difficult one, it is also a beautiful story. It's so important because stuff like this is happening in this world and the awareness is just mind-blowing. It's so heartbreaking to think that this kind of stuff is happening, but it's also a beautiful story of resilience at the same time. So I highly recommend this if you're somebody who likes that kind of story, something that's a little bit emotionally devastating, but beautiful at the same time. And yeah, like I said, just do check the trigger warnings. Same with the Lady of Darkness series. I believe Melissa K. Rourke has the trigger warnings listed for that series as well because it can deal with some darker topics. So just be aware. I also finished an audiobook in the month of February. It was called I Love You Like It's 1999 by AJ Pine. This was an Audible original, so I think it's included with your Audible membership. Okay, my camera died, so I'm gonna do my best to wrap this up really quickly. But like I was saying, I decided to read this because I didn't have any Audible credits. I didn't have any audiobooks minutes on Spotify and I needed an audiobook. So I decided to go with this one. This was just like a really fun, cute 90s rom-com situation. Our female main character was actually in her 40s, which I love that representation because I feel like a lot of the FMCs that I read about are like in their 20s. So I'm sorry, I am all here for some millennial nostalgia. Our main characters end up they go from like modern day and they end up in this time warp where they end up back in 1999 when they would have been like back in their 20s. It's just like a fun little nostalgic read if you're somebody like me who grew up in the 90s and 2000s. Nothing groundbreaking again, but a good little palate cleanser and a fun little rom-com about self-discovery and like 90s nostalgia. Once I finished with that audiobook, I still don't have credits available and my audiobook minutes on Spotify don't renew until tomorrow. So I again had to pick something that I already had in my library. I randomly decided to do a reread of City of Gods and Monsters by Kayla Edwards, which is the first book in the House of Devils series. I read the book about this time last year and I really loved it. I am caught up in the series. There's currently 4 books out and I have read them all. So doing the reread via audiobook has been so fun. I love listening to an audiobook when it's a book that I've already read because I don't have to like focus so hard and really pay attention. I kind of already know the basics of what's going on, but I'm still picking up on like small things that I missed the first time around. So having the best time with that. I don't even know. Let's see where I'm at with that.
Sure to his own chin. Go on. He crooned.
I don't think it really gives me like a place in it, but I am on chapter 19 and having the best time. Highly recommend. Those are all the books I've read so far this year. Have you read any of these? Are they on your TBR? Did you like them? Let me know. Let's chat down in the comments, or you can also follow me on Instagram at ashleycandicereads. And I think that's just gonna wrap everything up for today's video. If you're new around here, I do hope you decide to stick around by subscribing. And I hope you have the best day ever, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.